Well, hello, sunshines. Hi, sunshines. It's nice to see you all. You may, of course, feel free to stay right where you are. You may also feel free to scoot closer if you want to. Well, not you. You stay right where you are. I'm just saying. I feel close enough to you. Definitely. Well, hi. My name's Darrin, and I love a good story. And I don't care where it comes from. Books, movies, TV, plays, talking to people. I love stories. But I have to tell you, I am particularly, of course, partial to libraries. I spend a lot of time in them, and I have ever since I was little. Whenever we needed to know anything, when I was very little, we could just throw the Google on it because, of course, when I was little, there was no internet. Can you imagine how sad and lonely a world with no internet in it was? No Google nor nothing. So if we needed to know anything, we grabbed our wagon and we walked, I don't know, the half mile or so to our library. And then we'd find things out. The first time I got poison ivy, when I was in 3rd grade, I didn't know what it was. It was disgusting. My hands were all covered with it, and my legs. I looked like a mummy when I went to school because my mom wrapped it all up in bandages, and I just went, nah. But we went to the library, and we pulled out the books that talked about poison ivy, and then I knew what it was and how to avoid it. Not that I did a very good job of avoiding it, because I got poison ivy all the time. But I do love books and stories. And today, I wanted to bring with me a few of the stories that I particularly like. And so as I look around at you, I'm trying to decide what stories you need today. The theme this summer for summer reading is libraries rock. And I'm a terrible rock and roller. I play the banjo for one thing, so there's not much rock and roll there. And I dance like a landslide. So that's not much of an option. So I thought I'd find stories that maybe talked about mountains or rocks or things that live around mountains and rocks and that sort of thing. For example, once there was a family that lived way up on the side of the mountain. It was way up there. Town was way down here. Back and forth around the curvy roads, over the bridge, and into town. Now this family was Grandma and Grandpa and a little girl and a little boy. And the 4 of them lived together. And the 4 of them had a pet. I wonder what kind of pets we have. Does anybody have a cat? Raise your hand if you have a cat. Oh, excellent. I visited a town the other day. Nobody had a cat. It was like a cat-free town. What if you have a dog? Raise your hand if you have a dog. Oh, who has a cat and a dog? Oh, a few cats and dogs. Who has a fish? Oh, there's some fish. Anybody got a hamster or a gerbil or a guinea pig? Oh, a few. Anybody got a bird? Oh, there we go. Chickens count if you've got backyard chickens. Our neighbors, our good friends, have 4 chickens in their backyard. And they are the most loved and petted chickens in Iowa, I would have to say. Every night, they turn the chickens loose for a while, and they sit out in the backyard, and they just watch the chickens playing, and eventually the chickens come over and sit on everybody's lap or on their shoulders, and they pet them and love them. When they were gone last week and we were taking care of the chickens, Sarah wanted to make sure that when we filled their water every day, we made sure to put plenty of ice in it because it was hot and the chickens needed ice water. Those are some well-loved chickens, I gotta say. Yeah, chickens. This family, though. This family does not have a dog or a cat or a bird or a hamster or a gerbil or a chicken. They have a squirrel. I would love to have a squirrel. I know it would make a bad pet. I know if I tried to pick the squirrel up and cuddle it, it would bite my nose. But they're soft and little fluffy, and oh, I want a squirrel. We had neighbors once who had a squirrel in the yard that if you would sit quietly on the front steps with some peanuts, the squirrel would come and eat them out of your hand. But that's not what I'm talking about. No, siree, this squirrel lived with the family. When they went to bed at night, the squirrel curled up right there by their shoulder in bed. When they sat at the table and ate, the squirrel sat at the table too, going ta 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 ta. Well, now the entire family, grandma, grandpa, little boy, little girl, and squirrel, their favorite thing to eat in the entire world was biscuits. Oh, they loved biscuits. I do too. Biscuits and gravy. Biscuits and rhubarb jam. Just the other night, we had biscuits with strawberries and ice cream. They made biscuits all the time. Now, one morning, Grandma was getting ready to make biscuits. She opened the cupboard. She got out the flour and the salt and the butter and the milk and the baking soda. You have to have baking soda to make biscuits because it's what makes them fluffy. Now, in the old days, we did not call it baking soda. We called it soda of saleratus. Well, Grandma was mixing things up, and she got ready to add the soda, and it was all gone. You can't make biscuits without soda. Grandma said, "Oh, for heaven's sakes, will you look at that? I'm all out of soda." "Little boy, you're going to have to go down to the store and fetch me some soda so I can make my biscuits." So the little boy headed out the front door. He headed down the mountain, down the road, vroom, 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 toward the store. And as he was going, he was skipping along, singing out, "Sody, sody, sody, Sally, raid us." Just like that. He got to the store, he got his sody, and he was heading for home. Oh. Now, young people, at this point in the story, we introduce some elements of danger. Horrible things are about to happen. I'm telling you now so you'll know it'll be okay in the end. But if it gets too intense, you can hold on to the person next to you or something. I don't know. That's right. Well, as the little boy was trotting across the bridge, all of a sudden, up from under the bridge, there came a big brown bear. And the bear said, "Arr, I'll eat your sody saleratus, and I'll eat you too." Ow! And he ate the little boy up in one bite. The bear just ate the little boy. What kind of place are you running here? Man, stories like this for little children. Can you believe the bear ate the boy? Well, back at home, Grandma was wondering what was taking so long. Oh, for heaven's sakes, that little boy must be off playing with somebody, I suppose. "Little girl, you're going to have to go and see if you can fetch your brother back here." So the little girl headed out with her little skirt and her little pigtails. And she went trotting along down the road toward town. Vroom, 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 toward town, going, "Sody, sody, sody, saleratus." She got to the store and she said, "Excuse me, mister, have you seen my little brother? He came to get some sody." "Yes, little girl, he was here. He went that way." "Thank you." I make a pretty little girl, don't I? No. Nobody never accused me of being pretty, that's for sure. Well, as the little girl was trotting along over the bridge, all of a sudden, up from under the bridge, there came, we could say it together, a big brown bear. And he says, "Arr, I ate the little boy and the sody saleratus, and I'll eat you too. And he swallowed up the little girl. I know it's bad enough to swallow up the little boys, but to swallow up a little girl, that's really bad. And he was also getting to be kind of big. Well, back at home, Grandma was getting frustrated. She said, oh, for heaven's sakes, both of those children must be off playing somewhere. Grandpa, you're going to have to go and see if you can find those children. Old. Grandpa, he was so old, he wasn't just 1 cane old. Grandpa was 2 canes old. So he set off shuffling down the road toward town, all the way down the mountain, going, Shody, 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 saleratus. Excuse me, sir, have you seen a little boy and a little girl that come to get some sody? Yes, old fellow, they both been here. They went that way. Thank you. Well, as Grandpa went shuffling over the bridge, all of a sudden, up from under the bridge, there came a big, brown, ate the little boy and the little girl and the sody saleratus, and I'll eat you too. Ow. And away went Grandpa. He spit the canes out. Well, I tell you what, back at home, Grandma was getting really upset. She said, oh, for heaven's sakes, if you want something done right, you've got to do it yourself. So she put on her bonnet, and she got her purse, and she went to hunchety-hunching off toward town. She went vroom, 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 up and down the road going, Sody, 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 saleratus. Excuse me, sir, have you seen a little boy and a little girl and an old man? They all came to get some sody. Yes, for heaven's sakes, old lady, they've all been here. They went that way. Thank you. Well, as Grandma went hunchety-hunching along over the bridge, all of a sudden, up from under the bridge, there came a big brown bear. And he says, I ate the little boy and the little girl and the old man and the sody saleratus, and I'll eat you too. Ow. He ate Grandma. How could he eat Grandma? And he's huge now, too. And now there was nobody left at home. Except the squirrel, yeah. And you know, the squirrel was hungry. He wanted his biscuits. He was sitting there at the table and he jumped off the table. He scampered out the front door, and as he went scampering along down the road toward town, he was saying, da 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 da. He jumped up on the counter at the store and he said, da 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 da. Yes, for heaven's sakes, they've all been here. They all went that way. Ha da da. The squirrel went scampering along. But as that squirrel went scampering over the bridge, all of a sudden, up from under the bridge, there came a big brown bear. And he says, I ate the little boy and the little girl and the old man and the old lady and the sody saleratus, and I'll eat you too. And the squirrel went, ah! Woo! He climbed up a tree as fast as he could go. Well, the bear looked up the tree and he said, oh, if you can do that with your little legs, I can do that with my big ones. The squirrel went, he scampered out on a tree branch. The bear said, oh, if you can do And the squirrel went, ha-cha, ha-ha, ha-cha! He jumped over to the next tree. And the bear said, ah, if you can do that with your little legs, I can do that with my big ones. Hooah! Splat! When that big overstuffed bear hit the ground, he burst wide open. And out came Grandma and Grandpa and the little girl and the little boy with his bag of sody. And they all hurried home as fast as they could with their new bearskin rug. And Grandma made up the biscuits. And when they were done, she took them out of the oven and she broke off a piece. And she gave it straight to the squirrel. And they did not stop eating till the squirrel had eaten 6 whole biscuits. And that is the story of the Sody Sally Ratus. Now, my friends, I love that story because it's just silly. But it's also a tremendously easy story to tell. Why, it's little boy, little girl, grandpa, grandma, the bear eats them, the squirrel saves them. You could take that story home and tell it to somebody tonight. That's a pretty easy one. There might even be a copy of some kind of variation on it in the library. I don't know. You could check. But it's an easy story. You could act it out back with your friends. Your leaders can be the tree that the squirrel can climb up. They'd like that. Well, now, I'm from Cedar Rapids, of course. And in Cedar Rapids, over the last 150 years, we've had a lot of immigrants come from the Czech Republic, over in Europe, from Bohemia. And this next story comes from the mountains of Bohemia. The story is called The 12 Months. Now, when I start talking about the main character, you may not recognize the main character's name, because her name is Marukla. Marukla. I know, it's a different kind of, we don't name people that in the United States, but they do in the Czech Republic. So you may not recognize her right off the bat, but I bet she'll start to become clear to you. Now, Marukla, she lived in a little cabin up here at the bottom of the mountain. She lived there with her stepsister, Helen, and her stepmother. Now, because this is a fairy tale, there's one thing you already know right off the bat. And that is that, of course, the stepmother and the stepsister were wicked. We know that in real life, stepmothers are kindly, good-hearted creatures. See, yes. But in fairy tales, they seem by law to have to be wicked. And let me tell you, on a scale of 1 to wicked, these two were off the charts. Marukla did everything for them. Marukla did the cooking. Marukla did the cleaning. Marukla weeded the vegetable garden. Marukla fed the horses. Marukla milked the cows. While her stepsister Helen mostly sat around and did her hair. Sometimes she painted her fingernails. And other times she ate cookies. That was about it. The stepmother spent most of her time ordering Marukla around and criticizing her work. Does Marukla sound like a fairy tale character you know? Yeah. She sounds like a Cinderella character, doesn't she? We'll have to see what happens. Now, this story starts in the wintertime, in January. Do you remember how cold it is in January? Think about what it was like this past January, when it was 20 below zero. Whenever you went outside, your eyebrows would get frost on them, and your nose would stick together when you breathe in. Oh, it's cold, right? Very different from today. Well, that's what it was like. And there on the little cabin on the mountainside, the wind and the snow blew hard around it. What would that winter wind sound like blowing around? Ooh, that's very good. Sometimes it got louder. And then it would get soft. And then it would gradually get louder. Off in the distance, a wolf howled. Ooh, that was very good. Made me feel cold. Well, they had just finished eating supper, which of course Marukla had cooked, when Helen pushed back her chair from the table and said, "Ah, I am sick and tired of this food around here. Marukla, can't you do something else with the food? I mean, you're a terrible cook. I want something tasty. After all, I have to get prettier and prettier. There's a big party tomorrow night up at the castle, and all of the young men will be there. Maybe one of them will ask me to marry him." Marukla said, "You know, you are very beautiful, Helen. I have no doubt that you'll get a husband soon." "Well, no thanks to your help, I'm sure. Do you know what I wish I had? I mean, I'm already very pretty, but some flowers would really set off my eyes nicely. I've got such pretty blue eyes. Violets. I would look so nice with some fresh violets to wear." "You're right, you would. It's a pity that it's wintertime and there aren't any." "Oh, well, that's hardly helpful. I need some violets. I've got to have violets. If I don't have violets, I'll never get married." "Marukla, will you go outside and get me some violets?" I'd love to, sister, but I can't. It's January. There's 3 feet of snow." "You don't want me to get married!" "What is going on here, girls? Marukla, what are you doing to your sister?" "What? Marukla doesn't love me at all. She wants me to die alone. I asked her for violets and she won't get me any." "Marukla, how can you treat your sister this way? We take such good care of you. But it's winter. There are no violets." "Don't make excuses, young lady. You get outside and you bring her some violets. You are not coming back in this house till you have some." And they opened the door and they tossed her right outside into the snow. No coat nor nothing. What am I going to do now? Where am I going to find violets in winter? She had no idea what to do. She had heard that up on top of the mountain there was a fire that burned all year long. She thought maybe if she could get to the fire, she could at least get warm. So she headed up the mountainside, and soon enough, through the trees, she could see the fire. She made her way up the mountain to it, and when she came out, there was the fire, and around it was a ring of 12 stone chairs. In each chair was a person with a robe and a hood. She was scared, but she was also really, really cold. So she said, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm lost and I'm cold. May I come to the fire and warm myself?" One of the figures stood up. He pulled back his hood. He was an old, old man with long white hair and a white beard that came down past his knees. He said, "Of course, child, come in and warm yourself. Why are you here?" "Oh, you'll think it's silly. My stepmother sent me here to gather violets." "Why, it's winter. There are no violets now." "I know that, but they said they won't let me back in until I have them. I'm afraid I'll freeze out here." "We may be able to help you, child. We are the 12 months. I am January." He waved his hand across the fire. The flames burned up bright and blue. The figures stood up and they began to move around the circle until finally they stopped. The person next to Marukla pulled back her hood. She was a young woman with long blonde hair. She waved her hand over the fire. It burned up bright and orange. Instantly, the snow melted around them. The wind blew warm. The trees began to bud. The grass sprang up bright green. Moments later, it was dotted all the way across with bright purple violets. I am May, the time when the flowers come. Go, gather them quickly before they're gone. Thank you, I will. Marukla got down, and she filled her apron with the bright purple blossoms. Thank you. Thank you so much. You saved my life. She hurried back down the mountainside. Open the door, please. I brought you the violets. Oh, we don't believe that for a... You got them. Where on earth did they come from? Oh, I found them on the mountainside. You were very wise to send me out. You do know a great deal. Here you are, Helen. I'll take those. Helen stalked off without a word of thanks. Well, things went well for a few days. But then after supper, Marukla pushed back her chair. Oh, I am sick and tired of this food. Look at me. Nothing is going to go well. I'm going to gain weight. I'll be unhappy. And I need something good to eat. Some fresh fruit. Oh, Mother, do you know what I haven't had in ages? Strawberries. Oh, rich, red, ripe strawberries. Oh, can't you just taste them? Oh, I can, daughter. Strawberries would be heavenly. Marukla, my dear, go and get us some strawberries. I can't. It's January. There are none. Oh, don't you sass your sister like that, young lady. You found violets. Now off you go. Go find us some strawberries. And out they threw her into the snow. No cold nor nothing. As she headed out, the snow began to fall heavier and the wind began to blow. The wind began to howl around the house. What would that sound like? As she moved into the trees, it got louder. And it swirled around. She made straight for the mountainside. As she came up on the fire, the wind died down. Excuse me, may I come and warm myself? You may. Why have you come back, girl? My stepmother has sent me for strawberries. There are none. It is January. I know, but they want them, and they will not let me back in without them. We will help you again. He waved his hand across the fire, and it burned up blue. The figures began to move, until standing before her was a young man with black hair and gray eyes. He waved his hands across the fire. The snow instantly melted. The trees burst out in full leaf, and the wind blew warm and hot. The grass sprang up green. Across it were spread white flowers, which moments later were replaced with big, red, ripe strawberries. I am June, when the fruit comes. You may go and gather them, but they won't last long. Go quickly. Thank you. Thank you so much. She began to fill her apron with the strawberries. Thank you. You've saved my life again. She hurried down the mountainside to home. Open the door. Open the door quickly. I've brought the strawberries. Strawberries. You really did. Where did they come from? Oh, they came from the mountainside, just like you sent me. Here you go, sister. Give me that. Oh, my word. I've never had a finer strawberry. Oh my goodness. Oh, those are so good. Mother, you have to try one. I will, thank you. Oh, daughter, these are the best berries in the world. Oh. Marukla thought she might try one. Get away from there. No doubt you've already eaten your fill. These are some tremendously unpleasant people, aren't they? Yeah. Well, wouldn't you know it, a few days later, Helen pushed her chair back from the table again. She said, oh, all this week we have had nothing but bread and beans. For heaven's sakes, Marukla, are you trying to make me starve to death? Look at me. I'm wasting away to nothing. There was plenty of her left to go around, let me tell you. Honestly, Honestly, if I don't get some decent food, I can go waste away and starve to death. Now, sister, it's going to be okay. Oh, you do? You want me to die? No, that's not it. Well, then you need to bring me something decent. Apples. Apples, I've got to have some apples. They'll refresh me. They'll wake me up and make me happy again. But I can't. There aren't any apples now. You do? You want me to die? Well, Marukla was thinking she might agree, maybe. But Mother said, you get out there right now and you get her those apples. And out they threw her into the snow. The snow howled around her. The wind raged. She went straight to the fire. Child, what are you doing here? My sister sent me to get apples. There are no apples, my dear. It's winter. I know, but what will I do? I'll die in the cold. We will help you one last time. And so he raised his arms, and the fire burned up blue, and the figures began to move, until next to her stood a woman with long, flaming red hair. She waved her hands over the fire. It burned low and red. The snow melted mostly. The wind blew, but with some cold to it. The leaves budded out and turned green, but very quickly turned red and gold and began to fall. There, girl. There are your apples. Gather them before they're gone. Thank you. There were 3 big red apples left on the tree. Thank you. I'm so grateful. I'm back. Quick, let me in. You'd better have some. You do. Yes, I got them up on the mountainside. Here, sister. Give me that. Oh, such an apple. Oh, I've never had such an apple before. The stepmother grabbed the 3rd apple. These are amazing. They truly are. Marukla, why are there only 3? Well, that's all that was there. You're lying. You bought a whole orchard up there on the mountainside, and you're keeping them all to yourself. Well, you won't fool me. I'm going to go get them. And she threw on her cloak, and she ran out the door into the dark and the snow. And the snow and the wind began to blow. As she moved up the mountain, it got louder and louder. And then it died as she stepped out into the clearing with the fire. Did Helen ask permission to come closer? Did she say hello at all? She stepped boldly up to the fire and began to warm herself. Old January looked at her and he said, "Why have you come, child?" "Mind your own business, old man. What I'm doing is up to me." He minded his own business. And she wandered off into the snow, which began to blow. Louder and louder. Back at home, the stepmother paced back and forth in impatience. That girl is up on the mountainside right now, I'm sure, eating all of the apples for herself. Well, she shan't have them all, the wicked little thing. I will show her. I will go and get some myself. And she threw on her cloak. As she opened the door, the wind howled. And she disappeared into the night. Helen waited for them to come. Marukla waited for them to come home for hours and days. And eventually she went on with life. She met a nice farmer just down the road, and eventually they were married. And Marukla and her husband lived, of course, happily ever after. And that's the end. So make sure that if you meet strange people around a fire on the mountainside, that you be nice to them. That's literally the moral of the short story for you. Now, in Cedar Rapids, we have lots of immigrants from Bohemia and from the Czech Republic. In other parts of Iowa, immigrants came here from Norway. Do we have any Norwegians out there? There's a lot of them in northern Iowa. You know, one thing Norwegians have had problems with for centuries, of course, is trolls. The trolls live all over the mountains. Some of them are as big as mountains. Some of them live in the water. Some of them disguise themselves and look just like pretty girls. And all of a sudden you think you're talking to a nice girl, but it's really a troll. And there's only one way to tell. They have cow tails. So you have to make sure that there's not a cow tail sticking out from underneath her skirt. I don't know. What I do know is that in this old story from Norway, there was a little boy. And the boy's name is Buttercup. Aren't you glad your mother did not name you Buttercup, boys? Yeah. I know, because anytime you were having a problem, she'd say, oh, suck it up, Buttercup. But there it is. Now, one day, well, Buttercup kind of lived up to his name. He was very spoiled. He was quite lazy. He wasn't a particularly well-behaved child. One day, Mama was making bread. She was kneading the dough there on the counter when the dog began to bark. And off he ran out the front door. Mama says, Buttercup, go see why the dog's barking. Oh, fine. God, I have to do everything around here. Oh. Mom! Mom! There's an evil, awful, ugly old troll witch coming up the road. She's carrying her head under her arm and everything. Did you catch that detail? Carrying her head under her arm. That's just weird. Well, Mama, she said, quick, Buttercup, hide under the tablecloth. So he did. A moment later, there was a knock at the door. Now, if you know that there's an awful troll witch with her head under her arm coming up the road, should you open the door when someone knocks? No. No, this is basic. Mama opened the door. Ah! Can I help you? Remember, head's here, not here. Is Buttercup at home today? Oh, no, you just missed him. He's out hunting with his father. Oh, drat. And the nicest little silver spoon I was going to give to him, too. When Buttercup heard that, he jumped up from under the table and he said, I'm right here. Here I am. You can give it to me. Oh, good. Let me just get it from my bag. Oh, my aching back. Oh, I can't bend over like that. Buttercup, would you be a dear and just crawl into the sack and get it? Okay, if the creepy troll witch with her head under her arm asks you to crawl into a sack, what do you say? No! You all know Buttercup crawled right in. She grabbed the sack and threw it over her shoulder and off she went. What was Buttercup's mother doing?
Helping him.
Apparently not. Well, off went the witch. Long way home. I wonder how far it is back to Trollhagen. Buttercup yelled out, I think it's 4 miles. Oh, that's a ways. I better rest a little bit. Maybe I'll take a nap. She put her head on her stomach and Buttercup crawled out of the sack. He found some logs and sticks, and he put those into the sack, and he hurried home. Well, eventually the witch woke up. Ah! Oops, there goes my head. Oops. Well, let's get that boy. Ah! Oh, he's heavy. He'll be very tasty for supper. Imagine her surprise when she dumped the sack out, and there was no boy in there, just logs and sticks. Well, the next morning, Mama was making bread when the dog began to bark. And out the door he went. Buttercup, go see why the dog's barking. Oh, fine. Mama, there she is, the evil, awful troll witch with her head under her arm. She's coming this way. Quick, Buttercup, hide under the table. Because it worked so well yesterday. There was a knock. Oh! Can I help you? Hello. Is Buttercup at home? In town shopping with his father. Oh, drat! I had the nicest little silver I wanted to give him. Oh, I'm right here. Here I am. Oh, okay, there. Did you get that? Oh, Buttercup, be a helper and crawl into the bag, won't you? In the bag he went. She grabbed it. Oh, goodness. I wonder how far it is back to home. It's about 9 miles. Oh, that far. I better rest a little. My goodness. She put her head on her stomach and when he was asleep, he crawled out of the sack and grabbed a rock and headed for home. Well, the witch woke up. Oopsies, there goes my head. Always doing that. Oh, that's a heavy child. Whew. At home, she already had the pot boiling and ready to cook him. So she took the sack and she dumped it straight in the pot. Knocked the pot over and spilled the water. Next morning, Mama was making bread. They probably should have talked about the amount of carbs in their diet, but they didn't know any better. The dog began to bark. At the door. Buttercup, go see why the dog's barking. Oh, fine, Ma. There she is, Ma, the evil, awful, ugly old witch with her hand under her shoulder. She's coming this way. Oh, quick, get under the tablecloth, because it's sure to work this time.
No, it didn't. No.
Oh, hello. Can I help you? Hello. Is Buttercup at home? No, he's fishing with his father. Oh, darn. And the nicest little silver knife for him, too. Oh, here I am. Oh, Buttercup, my dear. It's down there, and right, and he went. Whoop. Now, the old troll, she had learned something. She didn't stop all the way back to Trollhagen. When she got home, she set the sack down, and she looked at the other trolls. There were about 12 of them in the house, ranging from very tall and very ugly to very short and extremely ugly. She said, okay, everybody, it's time for us to head off to church now. I didn't know they went to church, but they do. Don't know if they're Methodists or Lutherans, but they're something. All right, you, the ugly one there. You take care of cooking the boy for lunch, will ya? Go ahead and cut off his head and stick him in the pot. We'll be back. Off they went. Buttercup was not sure what was going to happen. The ugly troll came over. I'm supposed to cook you for lunch, kid, huh? Yeah, you'll do. You're kind of meaty. I'm supposed to cut off your head and put you in the pot. I've never done that sort of thing before. Do you know how to do it? Yes, I do. Young people, violence is about to ensue. You may wish to cover your ears. He got out of the sack. Well, it's very simple. You know, troll, it's much easier to demonstrate than it is to actually tell you how to do. So what you're going to do, you're going to take my head and lay it on the table like this. Yes, you just put your head right there. See? See how that is? Okay. And then you're going to take the axe, and you're going to go, hi-ya! Ew! Oh, that's disgusting. Oh, in the pot. Oh, there we go. Oh. That's just gross. He went outside and he gathered up the sticks and the rocks that had been brought, and he went up on the roof. Well, it wasn't long before the trolls got home. They all came crowding into the house and went, oh, my goodness, it smells good in here. That little boy must be cooking up nicely. Let's check that. Ooh, that is some tasty little boy. And Buttercup hollered down the chimney, "That's some tasty troll!" But they were so busy eating. "Ooh, my, that's tasty, little boy. It's tasty troll!" They heard him that time. They all poured out of the house. And Buttercup had developed enough aim to whack them all with a rock or a stick. And with them all laid out, he hurried around the house and found all of the gold and silver and jewels that they had stolen. And he took them back to his mother. And Buttercup and his mother lived very happily, if rather unintelligently, for the rest of their days. The end. Well, my friends, there is a little selection of stories for you. You know, they're all pretty easy stories to tell, especially the Sodi Saliratus story. You should really try to tell that one at home tonight. Next, you have a terrific library here with marvelous librarians whose purpose in life is to help you find books. So don't leave them without a purpose. Pester them to find you books. And then, of course, if you get to spend any time with your grandparents or other grandparent-aged people this summer, ask them to tell you stories about the silly things that your parents did when they were little, because your grandparents will tell you. And maybe ask your grandparents to tell you what life was like way back in the olden days when they were young. In the meantime, thank you very much for letting me come and tell you stories today. Have a great afternoon. Thanks.